On the morning of March 23rd, 2020, a woman failed to show up for work at a local clinic, a behavior completely out of character for her. Alarmed, a close friend decided to visit her home to check in. When she arrived, she found the doors locked and both cars parked in the driveway, raising even more concern. Fearing the worst, she called 911 for a welfare check. What police officers uncovered inside the home would shock the entire community. This is the chilling story of the McDaniels couple. Eugene, an 82-year-old retired hospital engineer, and Celeste, a 67-year-old nurse cherished by many, had been married since 1982 and spent their entire lives in Camden, Tennessee. Celeste had a daughter, Carrie Lynn, who was born in 1971. On October 4th, 1991, Caitlyn Danielle Taylor was born in Mississippi to Carrie and her husband, Daniel Taylor. While little is known about Caitlyn's early years, some social media comments from people claiming to be familiar with her upbringing suggest she faced challenges, possibly due to her mother's struggles with drug addiction. Despite these hardships, posts on Facebook depicted Eugene and Celeste as loving grandparents who supported Caitlyn in any way they could. In August 2012, 21-year-old Caitlyn gave birth to her son, Cooper. While her Instagram accounts showed her as a loving mother with her child, she eventually lost custody of Cooper to his biological father, Heath. Years later, however, on June 2nd, 2018, Caitlyn's father, Daniel, passed away unexpectedly. Shortly afterward, Caitlyn was arrested for disobeying a police officer, marking a turning point in her life. On September 13th, 2019, she faced more legal trouble when she was arrested for allegedly breaking into a woman's home. Reports claim that Caitlyn entered the house, got into the woman's bed, and cuddled with her dogs. Neighbors reported that Caitlyn had claimed to be the homeowner and said she needed to rescue her children, whom she believed were buried in the backyard. Following her arrest, Caitlyn moved in with her grandparents in Camden. However, by late January 2020, her mental state appeared to deteriorate significantly, as evidenced by her frequent posts on one of her several Facebook profiles. Around this time, Caitlyn also began a relationship with a man named Bart Johnson, with whom she spent much of her time. On several instances across her social media accounts, Caitlyn shared various claims about her past, including that she was a Russian orphan, had amnesia, and was a time traveler trying to get back to the current timeline. She also called herself Harley, after the comic book character Harley Quinn, or Baby Girl, often posting about searching for her husband or daddy. Caitlyn's final social media post was made on March 18th, 2020, with the message, "Quiet is violent." On March 21st, 2020, after spending the day with her boyfriend Bart, Caitlyn told him she wanted to return to her grandparents' house. Bart stated that he dropped her off around 10 p.m. Later that night, around 11:45 p.m., a man named Jonathan Craven, a registered sex offender, was driving with a friend when they saw Caitlyn walking down the street wearing short shorts and a hoodie, carrying a backpack and purse. Concerned, they pulled over and offered her a ride. According to Jonathan, Caitlyn introduced herself as Harley and said she had nowhere to go after a disagreement with her boyfriend. Caitlyn accepted the ride, and after Jonathan dropped off his friend, he took her to his home. When they arrived at his home, Jonathan grew uncomfortable with the inconsistencies in Caitlyn's story. Being on probation and wanting to avoid any trouble, he took her to his neighbor's house to talk. The neighbor, who happened to know Caitlyn's grandmother, spoke with her briefly. According to Jonathan, Caitlyn later fell asleep on the love seat while he kept a watchful eye, sleeping on the couch with one eye open. During this time, he noticed a deep cut on her pinky finger, which she explained was caused by accidentally cutting herself with a sharp knife. On the morning of Sunday, March 22nd, 2020, Jonathan was eager to have Caitlyn leave his home and suggested taking her to the hospital, especially given the deep cut on her pinky finger, which he claimed went down to the bone. However, Caitlyn refused and asked to be dropped off at a nearby laundromat instead. Around 1 p.m., Caitlyn contacted Bart, asking him to pick her up from the laundromat. Upon seeing her injured pinky, Bart urged her to seek medical attention at a local hospital, but Caitlyn was reluctant to go to Camden General Hospital. Later that afternoon, they decided to visit Baptist Memorial Hospital in Carroll County. Looking back, Bart believed Caitlyn might have avoided treatment in Camden to avoid being associated with something that would later come to light. After receiving medical care, they returned to Bart's home. According to Bart, Caitlyn behaved normally, showing no signs of anything being wrong that evening or even the following morning. On the morning of March 23, 2020, around 8 a.m., Celeste didn't show up for work at Camden Family Medical, which was very unlike her. Worried, her colleague and close friend, Christy Maness, decided to go to her house to check on her. When Christy arrived at the McDaniels home, she noticed that all the doors were locked and both cars were still in the driveway. Concerned for their safety, she called the police for a welfare check. 2 officers from the Camden Police Department soon arrived and attempted to make contact with the McDaniels. After gaining entry into the house, the officers discovered that both Celeste and Eugene were cold and unresponsive. Christy revealed that Celeste had previously confided in her about incidents where Caitlyn allegedly assaulted both her and Eugene. Celeste had said that if anything ever happened to them, she would know where to look first, implying Caitlyn would be responsible. Christy also mentioned that Celeste was so afraid of Caitlyn that she had been sleeping with a firearm for protection. While police officers and forensic teams worked at the crime scene, an officer was approached by a neighbor. The neighbor, who lived right next to the McDaniels, said she had gone to feed her dog and found what looked like a bullet in the dog's bowl. After further investigation with a projection rod, detectives determined that a gun had been fired inside the McDaniels' home, with the bullet piercing through their wall, passing into the neighbor's house, eventually landing in the dog bowl. Additional evidence found at the scene included a large kitchen knife with a broken tip, a .357 Magnum on the floor, and bloodstains in various parts of the house. Investigators eventually found Caitlyn at Bart's house, and after securing a search warrant for her belongings, they discovered a purple shirt and shoes with bloodstains. When booked into the Benton County Jail, Caitlyn refused to speak without her lawyer, whom she claimed to have lived with for some time, though this turned out to be false. After being read her Miranda rights, Caitlyn explained that when she returned home on Saturday night, Eugene had asked her to be quiet to avoid waking Celeste, who was asleep. Caitlyn went to the kitchen to get a drink, where she encountered Celeste, leading to a confrontation. She claimed that Celeste grabbed a knife, and in self-defense, Caitlyn struggled with her for control, which resulted in the cut on her pinky. After the struggle, Caitlyn said she threw the knife on the floor and left the house, maintaining that her grandparents were still alive when she departed. During court testimony, an agent revealed that both McDaniels were found with a single gunshot wound. Furthermore, when Celeste's body was moved, her head was nearly severed from her neck due to a deep slash. It appeared that the knife had broken during the incident, with its tip left embedded in her wound. Eugene had multiple stab and cut wounds, and the medical examiner indicated that some of these injuries were likely inflicted after death. On October 19, 2020, Caitlyn Taylor was formally indicted on 2 counts of first-degree murder. During the following court hearing, Caitlyn reportedly showed little emotion, stating that her grandparents were her best friends who had always cared for her. On December 17, 2020, Caitlyn Taylor pleaded guilty to 2 counts of first-degree premeditated murder, with each count resulting in a life sentence. She will not be eligible for parole until 2072. Caitlyn has since registered for the pen pal service meetaninmate.com. In her profile, Caitlyn describes herself as brunette bombshell with a very sexy voice. I have a hard road ahead of me, so I need some good men behind me. I'm working on getting my sentence reduced at the moment. I'm very open-minded, and we can be friendly or romantic. I enjoy the finer things in life and enjoy being catered to. We can email or talk on the phone. You take care of me, and I'll take care of you. Her earliest release date is listed as October 31st, 2079. Comments shared on Facebook and the online obituary for the McDaniels highlighted the significant impact of Celeste and Eugene's murder on the Camden community, with some of them reading as follows: I do not have the words to express what I feel. I just cannot believe she's gone. Celeste was the most beautiful, sophisticated, graceful friend. She had a natural, sincere elegance about her. I once asked her where all the characteristics came from, and she laughed and said, "Well, I think my grandmother." Celeste's mother was the first Benton County fairest of the fair. Eugene was wonderful. She was so happy with him. Delia, her stepmother, truly became the mother Celeste had lost at a young age, and Celeste truly was the daughter she never had. I will never forget her and Eugene. It's difficult to fathom the extent of the pain and suffering endured by the victims in this case, and it's tragic what ultimately happened to them at the hands of the monster they referred to as their granddaughter. As we contemplate this heartbreaking story, our thoughts are with the victims whose lives were cut short and the loved ones they left behind. If you found this story compelling, leave a like and comment your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching.